Salut French students, ça va? I hope you are all doing well. Welcome to video 5 of chapitre 2. In this video, we're going to be learning all about our first set of verbs to conjugate. You've probably heard all about conjugating verbs, whether it be in a high school French class, or maybe you've taken another foreign language in the past, or you've just heard that term somewhere out there. And so conjugating verbs is really something pretty simple. The word sounds kind of intimidating. It sounds like this heavy technical grammatical term, but all it is just talking about different people and different actions that they do. So depending on which person is performing an action, the verb changes to go along with that person. It just happens to be that conjugating verbs in English is really pretty simple. We don't have a lot of changes to our verbs, but other languages like French, like Spanish, Italian, German, they all have lots of changes in their verbs depending on who is doing that action. And so that's what we're going to start learning about here with regular ER verbs. So as it tells us here, regular verbs are groups of verbs that follow a predictable pattern of conjugation. In every language, there are irregular verbs. We have tons of them in English. Just think about the verb to be. I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, they are. Oh, the endings are all those forms of be are all kind of different, and there's no other verb in English that really follows the same pattern. The same thing in French. The verb être is like an irregular verb in French. So je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, nous sommes, ils sont. Okay, so depending on who is doing that action, every form of the verb's a little bit different. But regular verbs are really predictable. There's basically a stem, and you attach the same kind of ending to that stem for each person doing the action. So as you see with the verb parler, which is to speak or to talk, they all have the same pattern. So any regular verb that looks like parler, like jouer, we just learned that in the last video, you would take off the ER ending of jouer and add the same endings. So in a verb like parler, je, we just add an E to the end. Je parle. For tu, the informal you, we're adding es to that stem, which is P-A-R-L. Tu parles, and that es on the end of tu parles is silent. You don't hear the s there. And il, elle, or on parle, it's the same ending as je. Il and elle, of course, are he and she. On means like one, and it sometimes can mean we in a more informal sense. Nous parlons. So the nous form is going to be this ONS ending for regular ER verbs. And notice again that the S is silent. The ON is a nasal sound. Nous parlons. And then vous parlez. So that EZ ending goes with vous. Vous, of course, can refer to a group of people, male, female, mixed, or it can be the formal you if we're talking to somebody like a boss or a professor or something like that. And finally, we have il, elle, which refers to a plural group of males, females, or il can refer to a mixed group of males and females. And that's pronounced il or elle parle. So the pronunciation is the same as je parle, il parle, elle parle. They're all the same, but their spelling is different. And you can tell the difference between those different forms of the verb when you see them written down or spelled. In speaking, they sound the same, and the context makes it clear who you're talking about. So that's basically the pattern that you'll follow for all regular ER verbs. And you'll see at the end of this video, there is a list of 25 verbs that you'll learn in this chapter that all follow this exact same pattern. Je has this E ending, tu has the ES ending, il, elle, on has the E ending, nous has the ONS ending, vous has the EZ ending, and the plural il, elle has the ENT ending. So again, those are pronounced je parle, tu parles, il, elle, on parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. All right, let's move on. Okay, so basically, what does the present tense mean? What does it express? And if I have a verb like travailler, we have seen that in some previous chapters. Travailler is a regular ER verb, and it means to work. So, je travaille in French can mean three different things in English. Three different forms of the present. The present just means what's happening right now, or what happens in general, or what happens continuously. The present can kind of be divided up in different ways, even into English. So I work means in general that's what I do. It's like my state of being. It's what I do to exist. I am working, you're really referring to this exact present moment right now. If you're at your job and your best friend calls you and says, hey, let's get together right now, you might say, no, I can't, I'm working. And you're doing it right at this moment. In English, we call that the present continuous. And finally, I do work. And that's kind of more like for emphasis. If somebody said to you, you don't work, do you? And you might say, I do work. So all of those are the same thing as je travaille in French. In French, there's no such thing as a continuous verb tense like I am working. Je travaille takes care of all of these. So in that sense, French is a little easier than English. If you are learning English, you've got to learn all these separate forms. But if you're learning French, we just need to learn one form to talk about the present. And there are other expressions that help to express things like continuous things like I am working, but we'll learn those later. Okay, nous étudions. So this is we study, or we are studying, or we do study. So they all mean the same thing. All right, and then don't forget that when you have a form of the verb going with je, meaning I, of course, you're going to drop the vowel of je, the E, and you're going to connect it directly to the verb that comes after if it starts with a vowel sound or if it starts with a silent H. So j'aime is like je aime, but it would be awkward to say that. So instead of saying je aime, we drop the E and make a contraction with aime that comes after. And in the negative, it would be je n'aime pas. The same thing with a verb like habiter, to live somewhere. And I did see on your first exam that a lot of people used the verb vivre to express the idea of living, and it does mean to live, but it means to live in the sense of like being alive. J'habite or habiter means to like live in a place or to reside somewhere, so it's a little difference in meaning. In English, we use the same word for both. Okay, so j'habite, je n'habite pas. Okay, the H is silent, so it's basically a vowel sound in habiter. Yeah. So when the verb that comes after je begins with a vowel sound, whether it's a verb that begins with a vowel or begins with a silent H, you're going to collapse them into a contraction. And that's called an elision. All right, finally, here is the super fun list of regular ER verbs that now you can go ahead and study and memorize and begin to use and enjoy. And you will notice that I posted a coffee shop challenge bonus assignment for this week to give you a chance to practice these verbs. Of course, the coffee shop challenges are always optional, but I think there are two really good options there for you to practice these verbs. One is a Quizlet, which just gives you the chance to like go through flashcards of these verbs and just memorize what they mean. And that's a good first step. So if you haven't had French before in your past experience, or maybe it was a long time ago in high school when you studied French and you need to review the meanings of these verbs, you can start with that. The other option that I've given to you, if you had French more recently and the meanings of these verbs are still pretty fresh in your memory, I gave you a conjugation exercise on a website called conjugamos.com. And that's a really great website for practicing conjugations in lots of languages. So basically, just to give you a sense of how these are all pronounced, I'll go through the list. You can always backtrack on this video and use this as pronunciation practice. And I definitely encourage you to go to the Quizlet or to the Conjuguemos site and practice your conjugations or your memorization of these verbs. Okay, so aimer, chanter, commencer, compter, danser, dîner, écouter, envoyer, étudier, fermer, habiter, inviter, jouer, manger, nager, parler, passer, préférer, regarder, répéter, rester, rencontrer, surfer, travailler, visiter. Okay, so that's 25 verbs that you can go ahead and study. They will be useful to you for the next exam coming up, and they kind of lay the foundation for other verbs that are going to come later on in your French studies. So this is a great set to begin with. So we'll stop there for tonight. I wish you good luck, bonne chance, and as always, let me know anytime you have questions about anything related to the video presentations, to the mind tap exercises, to the projects like oral presentations, compositions, anything that we're working on. So I wish you a good night. Bonne nuit.